All right, welcome to another deep dive, everybody. Today, we're doing something a little different. We're
Hmm.
going to be looking at a single phrase,
Okay.
and that phrase is IELTS listening.
Interesting.
Now, you might be thinking, what?
Yeah.
That doesn't seem very deep,
Yeah.
but just stick with us
Oh.
because there's actually a lot that we can unpack just from that little phrase. So what are your initial thoughts? What do you think when you hear IELTS listening?
Well, when I hear that, I immediately think of the International English Language Testing System.
Right.
And so with IELTS listening, we're specifically talking about someone's ability to understand spoken English,
I see.
which can be pretty high stakes depending on what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I've always been curious about how they actually test that,
Hmm.
the listening part of a language test.
Yeah.
It seems pretty tricky to design a test that can actually accurately capture someone's ability to understand spoken English.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. So they try to design the test to mirror real world situations that you'd encounter in an English speaking environment. So they'll use a range of accents and speaking styles from things like casual conversations to academic lectures.
Oh, wow. So it's not just about understanding the words themselves, but also the context and the accent.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a good point. I imagine that could be really tough, especially for someone who hasn't had a lot of exposure to different English accents.
Totally. Can you imagine trying to understand a thick Scottish accent if you've only ever heard American English?
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be like watching a movie with the subtitles off.
Aha! Exactly.
So what kind of questions can someone expect to see on the listening section of the IELTS?
Well, you'll see all sorts of different question types: multiple choice, matching, sentence completion, even diagram labeling.
Wow.
Yeah. And the key with the listening section is to be able to process information quickly, identify key details, and follow the line of reasoning,
Yeah,
all while you're listening.
all at the same time. That sounds
Oh.
pretty intense.
Yeah, it is.
I was reading that they even include things like simulated announcements or phone conversations.
That's right. They really try to incorporate those everyday situations
Oh,
to gauge how well you'd be able to actually function in a real English-speaking environment.
I see.
Because it's not just about understanding textbook English,
Right.
it's about navigating all those little nuances of communication.
That's incredible. It really is a deep dive into the complexities of language and comprehension.
Definitely.
So for anyone out there who's thinking about taking the IELTS, it sounds like the listening section is not something to take lightly.
Definitely not. And that brings up a really important point, which is preparation is absolutely key
Yeah.
for the listening section. Familiarizing yourself with different accents, practicing active listening, and understanding the types of questions you'll see.
Right.
That can make all the difference.
Absolutely. So even though we just started with this small phrase, IELTS listening,
Right.
we've really uncovered a world of challenges and things to consider.
For sure.
But I also think there's a lot of opportunity here because the ability to navigate different accents and to understand complex spoken information,
Yeah.
those are such valuable skills, regardless of whether or not you're planning on taking this test.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's really interesting to think about is how these skills that are being assessed in this specific testis framework can be valuable in a broader sense, in a globalized world.
Right.
When we think about things like international collaborations, cross-cultural communication, access to information,
Wow.
these skills can be applied to so much more than just a test score.
That's an incredible point. And that's something I think everyone listening can take away and think about.
Yeah.
So much to think about just from this one little phrase. And it really makes you wonder, what else is out there?
Right.
What other hidden depths we could uncover if we just take a little time to dig a little deeper
Absolutely.
into these everyday things that we encounter.
For sure.
So thank you for listening to another deep dive. We'll see you next time.
See you then.